Place Republicans broke through decades of Democratic dominance in North Carolina politics was in the state's U.S. Senate seats. Since 1980, Republicans have served 66 years as U.S. Senators from North Carolina to just 18 for Democrats.
Yeah, Congressman Ted Budd, who for the last 6 years has represented the 13th district around his home in Davie County, wants to move up to the Senate to keep retiring Senator Richard Burr's seat in Republican hands.
As he campaigned in Greensboro recently, Republican Ted Budd says he hears about the same issue no matter where he goes.
It's inflation, and it's not some academic sense. It's not a college professor in Economics 101 talking about it. Parents, just 6 weeks ago, Bob, they were saying, I don't know how I'm going to afford back to school clothes this time, and gas, and power bill.
That's borne out by the poll we did recently along with Emerson College and The Hill, which shows that the #1 issue by far is inflation and the economy, which voters cited more than the next 3 issues combined. As a conservative, though, I would imagine you would feel there's limited things the government can do about this.
There's a lot of things, Bob, that you can stop doing. You can stop being hostile to energy. You can encourage American energy production, which, by the way, is the cleanest place in the world to produce it.
Is there a reason to start looking to get out of fossil fuels?
We could look at it. We've known for years how safe and plentiful that nuclear energy could be for us, especially if you're going to push people towards electrification.
There still is an issue with getting rid of the waste that we haven't solved.
Not in the next generation. It's much less of an issue. It actually can make use of that waste, and there'll be much less of it.
The political landscape changed this summer when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade and returned the question of abortion access to each state. You signed onto the House bill that would ban abortion after 15 weeks, with some exceptions, I assume?
That does have some exceptions, correct.
But you say that you want the states to make their own rules on this. So how would that work?
Well, you have to go back to why I signed on to the 15-week bill. What the left has done, Joe Biden has supported the most radical abortion bill in history, and that's the so-called Women's Health Protection Act. I mean, if they're going to do that federally, then I'm going to counter it federally with the bill that I sponsored or co-sponsored. But I'd also say, let's have the decision made closer to home, like in Raleigh, rather than in Washington, D.C.
We can't do it without folks coming in, laying the issues out here like Don Jr., and thank you again for coming to North Carolina and supporting.
While some Republicans are distancing themselves from former President Trump, Budd campaigned with Donald Trump Jr. in Greensboro, and though he doesn't mention the former president as much as he used to, he's not distancing himself from him as much as others in his party. A lot of people in your party do not want to see a second Trump presidency. Their argument is there were serious people in that first administration, the Jim Mattises of the world, General Kelly's, that will not touch a second Trump presidency. Are you worried about a second Trump candidacy?
I'll say a couple things. One is he won North Carolina twice. I'll also say he endorsed me because I'm an America First candidate, and I've never wavered on the things that are good for the American people.
You understand why people, though, want to know if I'm going to pull that lever or mark that box for Ted Budd, I need to know that, like what they would consider the responsible people in your party, he will stand up against these issues.
Well, I understand, but again, what led to 1.4% inflation, the highest wage growth, the lowest unemployment for African Americans, for women, for Hispanics, those are the things that his America First policies led to. So he endorsed me not because of a style. My style is not the same as his, but he endorsed me because of the America First policies, which put our country in a very strong place. And it didn't project the American weakness that Joe Biden's doing right now.
As we head into the final weeks before the election, Budd remains in a dead heat in his race. Bob Buckley, Fox 8 News.
Budd has been to the southern border and says securing it is another of his priorities to stem the tide of what he says is a massive amount of human and drug trafficking.
While